What's up, guys? John here. One of the most connected billionaires in America just issued a dire warning to every single American about what is coming for the dollar and what is coming for this country.
We have $35 trillion of indebtedness. We are now paying more on interest on that debt than we're spending on our defense budget. And when you do that, historically, a country's currency goes down in value. The country is in trouble.
How connected is he and who is this man? David Rubenstein is this connected. $39 billion state in Nantucket. Let's have Jill and Joe Biden stay there for Thanksgiving. That's how connected he is. I have his book. I read this last year, How to Invest. He has everyone from Sam Zell from Equity Residential and Equity Office to Jonathan Gray, who heads the real estate division at Blackstone, to Larry Fink at BlackRock, to Mark Andreessen. You start to look at these major players he's connected with. This warning is going to start to make more sense, especially when you connect it with what Ray Dalio just said. Ray Dalio, who founded the largest hedge fund in the world in 2013, Bridgewater and Associates, was just the leader in private equity. They were just the absolute powerhouse that it is now, it's turned into. Ray Dalio saying, you know what, I'm buying gold. This is what I'm doing. I'm buying gold. He's talking about a civil war, Ray Dalio.
Billionaire investor Ray Dalio believes that there's more than a 1 in 3 chance of a second American Civil War breaking out.
Ray Dalio just came out and said these are the list of countries that are going to thrive over the next decade, and nowhere on that list is America. He's talking about India, Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, talking about all these other countries, but basically saying America is in very, very big trouble. And why he's saying this is the real shocker. And in this video, I'm going to show you the deadline that David Rubenstein has on America, and I'm going to show you kind of what's going on and what's happening and what they're planning to do to solve this incoming crisis and why we should all prepare for it. Please hit the like button. When you do, YouTube will share the content, educate more people about what's really unfolding in America's economy. Take a look at this. In July, a report on the fall of Denver and the fall of Ohio, 2 months before the media. In 2023, I predicted federal rent control would come and food price controls would come to combat inflation. The White House is now working to make both of these laws.
Passed the first ever federal ban on price gauging on food.
My incredible team provides tomorrow's news today. Only 30% of all viewers are subscribed. If you subscribe, the algorithm will reward the channel and we can expand and grow and hire more researchers. Thank you for simply clicking the red button to subscribe to the channel. Now on to the video. It's shocking. Billionaire warns interest on debt topping defense spending, a sign the country is in trouble. Now, his company, Carlyle, they have $426 billion in assets under management. This was as of last year, right? As of 2023. So it's probably closer to maybe $500 billion in AUM. He's saying that the deadline for this is next year. Next year, you're going to have to take care of this. And we got the elections coming up in November. I think next year is going to be a huge question mark about America. It says we're running about a $2 trillion annual deficit, $2 trillion out of about $6.5 trillion. It's hard to keep doing that and thinking that at some point something isn't going to go wrong, he explained. There's an old saying in economics, if something can't keep going on forever, it won't. And I think at some point we just can't keep doing that. So what he's saying here is that Medicare, $847 billion a year. You have $753 billion in Department of Defense. It's just we're spending $1 trillion every 100 days. And so this new conversation, it's not really new, but it's really becoming more of a mainstream conversation is we have to go after the billionaires. The billionaires are going to solve this problem. We have to increase taxes. We have to make them pay their fair share, and this will then balance out all of our problems. But the more you look at this, the more you realize that billionaires, they're not going to be any part of this equation. This is all going to fall in middle America. And the problems we're going to be walking into because of this is the real shocker. And this is why I believe a lot of these billionaires are selling and liquidating tons of stock and getting ready for it. Because I think we're going to walk into a scenario where taxes are going to explode and a crisis is going to ensue. So on top of what's happening with the $35 trillion in debt, 60% of $2.17 trillion in global finance and non-corporate debt is set to mature over the next 12 months. So you're probably seeing all the layoffs that are happening, major corporations laying off tens of thousands of people. Well, you have about $1.5 trillion in loans that are going to refinance over the next 9 months. From July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025, it comes due, first half of 2025. So 1.5 trillion in debt held by companies is going to refinance from, probably in the low 3% interest rate to where it is now. So their costs are going to explode. The economy is changing. Consumers aren't spending like they were in 2021 and 2022. They have less money and they're more skittish about the future. So they're being more cautious with their dollars, meaning they have less money coming in to pay for more debt. And so we're going to see a lot of change unfolding across the labor market, the job market, all at a time when they need to drive up and drum up more tax revenue. Now, billionaire investor Ray Dalio says he's owning gold to hedge the risk of debt and inflation. Ray Dalio is holding on to gold as a buffer against risk stemming from higher inflation and potential debt crisis hitting the economy. So he's talking about the debt crisis. And then you have David Rubenstein, CEO of Carlyle, saying the same exact thing. I mean, what are the odds of this? And it's all right around the same time, last 4 or 5 months. This article came out 2 days ago, or yesterday actually, September 24th. So September 24th. And what Ray Dalio is saying is the billionaire investor and former Bridgewater Associates CEO had pointed to the mounting debt balance around the world, with the U.S. debt notching $34 trillion for the first time ever this year. Debt problems have also plagued China, Japan, European nations, which posed a big risk for the currencies in those nations. History and logic show that when there is big risk that the debts will either not be paid back or be paid back with money of depreciated value. The debt and the money become unattractive. When nations are deeply indebted, central banks are likely to print out more cash to pay off the debt, he noted, which is itself a problem. Now, Ray Dalio is saying these are the countries that are going to thrive. Says Dalio's assessment is based on 81 indicators, including measures of power, education, innovation, tech, competitiveness, military, trade, economic output, federal or financial center, and reserve currency status. The index predicts that India will see the largest annual growth rate forecast with 6.3%, followed closely behind the UAE at 5.5%, Indonesia 5.5%, Saudi Arabia 4.6%, Turkey 4%. On the other end, the European nations like Germany down 0.5%, Italy down 0.5%, and only 2 other countries that are predicted to regress, while negligible growth is expected in Switzerland at 0.2% and Spain 0.3%. Mexico is the brightest future North America, expected 2.5% growth, while Poland, Russia, and South Africa all at 2.9%. So you look at the chart, nowhere on it is America. Well, right here at 1.4. This is where they're predicting annual growth. But nowhere on the top leaders is America. So here you have UAE growing at 3 times the rate. You have India growing at 4 times the rate. Why? Right? Because we're walking into a major structural change in the world order. I mean, Ray Dalio has a book out talking about the change in the world order. So this isn't like something like, oh, maybe it will happen, it won't happen. He's talking about this. I have the book. It's the size of an encyclopedia, talking about all the changes that are going to be coming for America. So as this is happening, we see other countries walking into their own problems. The Maldives hunts for a bailout. Even Kenya's first troubles, largely homemade. Now the country's running out of options. You're starting to see a lot of change unfolding. But what I think is very fascinating is the conversation of how we solve this change. Now, all the U.S. billionaires have a total net worth, allegedly, of $5.2 trillion. Now, at $5.2 trillion, they say that we can implement a 25% tax on the wealthiest taxpayers. So let's just say, for easy math, it's $1 trillion in revenue that they would generate from this tax. All these billionaires, they would just happily strike a check, and their money's not tied up in stocks or other assets. I mean, what are the odds that these billionaires are sitting on 25% in just cash? Very slim, right? But let's say that they are, and they're able to strike a check for $1 trillion. That would literally buy us 100 days of current government spending. That's what it would buy us. It wouldn't solve the problem. And so when you look at who they're endorsing, you can see that who's going to solve the problem is going to be middle America. Taxes are going to skyrocket, and it's going to be presented as a solution that we all have to work together to solve. And you start to ask yourself, well, how will that actually work? What would happen? Well, we're going to likely see a major consolidation of wealth over the crisis that's going to soon ensue in America. I mean, it's shocking. So last year, Biden unveiled a $7.3 trillion budget with $5.5 trillion in tax hikes. And in August, just a month ago, she backs the $5 trillion in tax increases according to tax policy. So, and according to New York Times, right? So these are the moves that we're going to be taking as a country. Now, the big question is, how is that going to actually work, right? Let's look at this. The 760 billionaires that we have in America, they apparently employ, the average billionaire is employing hundreds of thousands of employees, either directly or indirectly through their employees and who they hire, and the chain, the ecosystem created underneath these corporations established by these billionaires. So if you taxed these 760 billionaires, you imagine the amount of people that would lose their jobs. Imagine the amount of tax revenue that would fall from all of the unemployment that would ensue, or the millions of jobs that would be lost, right? It would be an absolute crisis. Issuing taxes on all of these billionaires would not be something that would benefit the middle class. If anything, it would benefit the billionaires, because these billionaires would be able to buy up the assets that would be forced sold on the market, because the middle class simply couldn't afford to make the payments because they'd be out of a job. Right? The billionaires would just get richer. Now, what's fascinating is David Rubenstein sold 2 million shares of his own stock for $77 million in 2022. Then you have Jamie Dimon, the CEO of America's largest bank. They move $10 trillion of US dollars every single day. 10 trillion a day. So every 3.5 days, they're moving the entire US debt. They're funding IMF, the United States government. They're funding countries. He sold $150 million of his own stock for the first time since he took the reins in 2005, almost the last 20 years. So you have David Rubenstein selling. You have Ray Dalio selling and doing very interesting things and making very bold predictions about America's future. You have Warren Buffett selling, as of last week, he sold about $8 billion in Bank of America stock. Now it's just continuing to grow. He sold more stock today, September 25th. He just continued to unload. He also sold half of his Apple position. His top insurance guy, Ajit Jain, he sold half of his Berkshire position, valued at roughly $139 million, which is 200 Berkshire Class A shares. Then you have, Bezos and Zuckerberg continuing to unload and sell. And then you just start looking at what these countries are doing with gold. It's fascinating. Saudi Arabia is secretly buying gold, how investors buy gold, what drives the market. What's behind China's gold buying spree. Should you buy gold? 601% increase. Russia unleashes unmatched gold buying spree 4 days ago, 1 month ago. Like gold ATM, it's just 18 minutes ago. The conversation, Saudi Arabia is secretly buying. The conversation right now is just protecting on the downside. And it looks like this is what a lot of these big corporations are doing right now with layoffs. This is what looks like a lot of the most powerful people and companies are doing. They're getting ready for a major storm that's unfolding. I just find it very fascinating. You just start to kind of connect the dots on what's happening in the U.S. economy. You start to look at what, Ray Dalio and David Rubenstein are both saying comes next. Odds are probably coming next. What do you think about this entire situation? I think we're going to see a lot of volatility in the stock market. I think some stocks could massively grow in value inside of a crisis, and some could massively fall in value. I think we're going to see a very, very volatile market, a very volatile economy because of all this. Let's have a conversation below. If you're interested in learning about investing in stock, or maybe you want to bet on the future of the market, maybe you think it's going to go up, maybe you think it's going to go down, you can get started with Moomoo by clicking the link in the description just below this video. Let's talk about this. I think we're going to see some major changes unfolding in the next 90 days. I'll catch you next video.